I'm your host Pensyfan19 and welcome to the April 2023 Pensyfan Periodical. This is a monthly news series which covers most of the major railroading headlines from around the world, as well as my opinions on them. We have a lot of articles to go over today, so with that in mind, let's get rolling. First off, as a Brightline mega fan, I just have to highlight proposed privately operated passenger services whenever they pop up, as we're starting this periodical by reviewing Dreamstar, a privately funded startup that wants to offer night service from Los Angeles to San Francisco as early as this year. Following on the trend of night train services becoming more popular in Europe, this company essentially wants to restore the Lark, the Southern Pacific's night train between the same two cities, specifically by using classic Pullman and Bud streamlined coaches and sleepers. This reminds me of two other privately funded night train proposals on the East Coast, specifically from New York to Montreal and from Montreal to Portland. So the category of luxury night train seems to be relatively popular for startup passenger rail services, likely due to the unpredictability and lack of frequency of Amtrak's long-distance and intercity services. Likewise, it also helps in further developing the privately funded passenger rail market, in which these services can offer higher quality rail-based alternatives that not only compete against the car, bus, and plane, but also directly competes against Amtrak, or fills some gaps that Amtrak currently doesn't serve. Despite the somewhat high prices ranging from $300 to $1,000 for the proposed sleeper service, I support the addition of more night trains, especially by private companies that only focus on running services within the designated region, instead of having to worry about night service in addition to every other passenger rail service in the country. Speaking of which, here's some interesting news. CSX released a Gevo-inspired truck named Mighty Chessie. The Atchison Railway has refurbished one of their rail cars to a dinosaur train in celebration of a nearby dinosaur museum. A plane made an emergency landing on the Canadian National ex-Michigan Central Main Line. The 200-foot-long Bayside Canadian Railway has been shut down. Tucker Carlson has been ousted from Fox News. Various rail unions are calling to prohibit stock buybacks by the Class 1s. Lionel has released a weather balloon defense pack. GWR coaches have been pulled from service on various tourist railroads due to Gen Z not knowing how to open the doors due to their locking mechanisms. Plans to transport water by rail are supposedly halted by the Class 1s and other small railroads. The Portland-Vancouver Junction Short Line is a trial in an experimental autonomous electric road railer. And Amtrak has wrapped 4 ACS-64s in identical advertisements promoting the Harry Potter Cursed Child Broadway musical, including engine 634, 636, 641, and 653. This marks the first time more than one Amtrak engine was given an identical wrap, as it adds even more special interest units to look out for while rail fanning the Northeast Corridor, and I hope to see more ad wraps or heritage units on Amtrak's busiest corridor. In other news, North America saw the start of a new era on April 14th with the official start date of Canadian Pacific Kansas City, or CPKC, as the beginning of service was celebrated by a spike driving ceremony, even though no official livery has been released as of yet. But as a railroad that pursued purchasing Kansas City Southern, rival railroad Canadian National wasn't going to ride quietly into the night, as they quickly partnered with Union Pacific and Ferromex to offer intermodal service from Canada to Mexico City to directly rival CPKC. Even though many rail fans such as myself are sad to see Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern go into the history books as separate railroads, it'll certainly be interesting to see how these freight roads interact in order to be more competitive against each other. This month has also been pretty busy for Brightline West, as they released concept art of their Las Vegas station, and although the platform region isn't too clear, the head house and surrounding garden look great. Even more interesting is upon the news of the project receiving bipartisan support from the state of California, the private railroad released renderings of a Brightline Avelia Liberty by Alstom instead of the previous Siemens Volaro Novo. This comes as a huge surprise as Brightline West already has a great partnership with Siemens, given the use of their Charger and Venture sets in Florida, and with their initial renderings of 2 variants of Volaro HSTs. Many rail fans were also quick to point out the lack of catenary and overhead wires in the renderings, causing some to fear the project would not be electrified, but this was likely a rendering error as Brightline is unlikely to ditch electrification for battery, hydrogen, or diesel. At least not in this region, hopefully. I personally prefer the Volaro Novo over the Avelia Liberty, since the Avelias on Amtrak have had a few testing issues which delayed their entry by 2 years, and their coaches don't match up with the power car due to the lack of tilting mechanisms in the locomotive, and not to mention its horn. And besides, Brightline was the first railroad to place Siemens Venture coaches into revenue service, and was the second railroad to purchase the now common Siemens Charger, so Brightline's rolling stock choices have always been innovative, and choosing a never-before-used HST in the US that integrates its propulsion throughout the coaches instead of 2 power cars would be a great opportunity for a standard type of HST to prove its worth in the States. Speaking of Siemens and awesome projects in North America, Siemens is to provide new light rails to Cleveland's RTA to replace their subways on the Red Line, as well as Siemens charger and venture sets for Amtrak's Piedmont, while Alstom has been awarded to design light rails for Quebec City's proposed light rail network. Telgo has released concept art of new cab cars for DSB, while Sadler is to make new EMUs for German name that I can't pronounce railway. UL has released concept art for the RZD Las Tochtas. Terrasas has revealed the E5000. JR Hokkaido has revealed their Class 737, while the Tobu Railway has revealed their Specia X luxury train. TFW has placed their Class 230s into service. Tri-Rail has released a new livery around the same time as Miami looking into expanding commuter rail service south of the city. China to Laos high-speed rails commence service, along with Tunisia's first electrified rail line, specifically the RFR Line E. Virgin Orbit has filed for bankruptcy. Norsk Tog has donated a few Class 92s to Ukraine. Northern has placed their Class 142 Pacers onto laser train service. NW 611 is to return to the Virginia Transportation Museum in the coming months. The Goldbrookdale Railroad has acquired CN 5288. SEPTA diesels have moved an RS1 to the Allentown and Auburn Heritage Railroad. The Trolley Museum in New York has acquired a MARTA CQ310 subway. The Arcade in Attica has acquired RS3U number 406. New York, Susquehanna, and Western has released a heritage unit on the SD40-2. And Amtrak has restored full service on the Adirondack to Montreal, thus marking the last full restoration of services impacted by the pandemic. Also, congratulations to Stalybridge for being named Best Kept Station, and happy 15th anniversary to UTA's Frontrunner. After all that, it is now time for this month's Meme of the Month. This month's Meme of the Month is Better for the Environment. And now, the top story of the April 2023 Pensyfan Periodical is California passes emission standards for locomotives. As the first state to pass such a law for specifically the rail industry, California passed a law enforcing that all locomotives in the state must be less than 23 years old in 2030, meaning a build date of 2007 or later, or must be zero emissions or ZE, including battery or hydrogen power. This comes shortly after the EPA passed a similar ruling for semi-truck emissions in the same state, as this is another one of many steps California is taking to be a leader in fighting climate change. Since both of these rules intend to reduce the use of diesel fuel in favor of new forms of energy that are in the developing stage in the railway industry, these rules have received backlash from various Class 1s, including Union Pacific, who claim that, despite their program to place converted battery-powered engines into service relatively soon, the company is deeply disappointed by the vote, adding that the rule is too ambitious for the current technology and infrastructure. This also calls the power of various short-line railroads into question, since they can only afford second-hand diesel engines built in the 70s, with the rule not indicating any plans to cover most costs of replacement engines or prime mover conversions. However, an important aspect to note of this rule is that it still has to be approved by the Biden administration in order to move forward and take effect, so there's still some chance that the rule could be modified or rejected altogether. Although I feel it's important to emphasize cleaner forms of energy across the board, rail transport still accounts for some of the lowest GHG emissions of any form of transport, based on their capability to move multiple units of goods with one prime mover, instead of one prime mover per unit like cars and trucks. Likewise, I don't feel railroads should be rushed as quickly to decarbonize when compared to more polluting forms such as trucks and planes, since all trains from high-speed rail to branch line freights are still fundamentally good for the environment, and much more efficient than thousands of electric trucks causing congestion. Whatever happens next, it'll certainly be interesting to see how freight and passenger roads will respond to this powerful rule, as they'll either make limitations for service in the state, or be forced to speed up their battery hydrogen programs, or maybe even consider electrification. But who can say for sure? Thank you everyone for watching this month's episode of the Pensyfan Periodical. There have been a lot of rail news headlines for the month, and it will be very interesting to see what the future has in store for all of these articles. Thank you again for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Have a good day.